You know exactly what you need to do. You've known for a while, actually. Maybe it's the workout you keep postponing. The project that's been sitting half-finished for weeks. The one thing you tell yourself you'll start on Monday, and then it's Monday, and you still don't start. You open the app, you look at the task. Something tightens in your chest, you close it. And then you spend the next hour doing something easier, telling yourself you'll feel more motivated later. Here's what nobody told you. That moment where you know you should do the thing and your body refuses. That's not a character flaw. That's not laziness. That's not you being broken. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. And the reason most discipline systems fail you specifically, the reason motivation doesn't stick, the reason you can white-knuckle a habit for 2 weeks and then drop it completely, has to do with something that happened long before you ever tried to build a routine. Your brain doesn't resist effort because you're weak. It resists effort because at some point, it learned that effort was dangerous. That starting meant risking something. That finishing meant being judged. That trying hard and falling short meant something about your worth. And a brain that learned those things will flinch every single time you try to begin. That flinch isn't weakness, it's wiring. And wiring can change. There are patterns that show up when this is happening, specific ways the resistance expresses itself. If any of these feel familiar, you're not imagining them. 3 signs your nervous system has linked discipline with threat. Sign 1. The task feels heavier than it is. You sit down to do something objectively small, 20 minutes of work, a short workout, one email you've been putting off for 3 days. And it feels enormous. Not because it's hard, but because your brain isn't measuring the task. It's calculating the predicted cost of the task, how much exposure, how much potential failure, how much risk of being found lacking. The task is small. The weight you feel is the threat prediction. And that prediction runs automatically before you've even decided whether to start. Sign 2. You start, then stop without knowing why. You open the document, you write a sentence, you close the document, you didn't decide to stop. Nothing interrupted you, you just stopped. This is your brain pulling an emergency brake. The moment you began, something registered as threat, the exposure of being seen, the possibility of getting it wrong, the weight of expectation, and your nervous system shut the process down before you could get hurt. It happens so fast it doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like losing focus. But it's your body protecting you from something it still believes is dangerous. Sign 3. The resistance comes before you've begun. You feel it before the task has even started. Just thinking about doing it creates a physical sensation, a tightening, a low-level dread, sometimes a vague urge to be anywhere else. That's called an anticipatory threat response. Your brain is predicting the cost of the action before the action exists. It's trying to protect you from pain it's expecting. The problem is, it learned that prediction inside a context that no longer applies. And it hasn't updated yet. These aren't random. They're patterns that formed for specific reasons. Understanding the origin doesn't fix the wiring automatically, but it matters because you can't change something you keep misreading as a personality flaw. 3 roots that created this wiring. B.J. Fogg at Stanford spent years studying why behavior change fails even when motivation is high. His conclusion? The brain doesn't resist new behaviors out of laziness. It resists them when the new behavior is attached to a threat state. Change requires the behavior to feel safe first, not forced through resistance. Root 1. Your brain linked effort with threat. At some point in your life, trying hard had a cost. Maybe you worked for something and it wasn't enough. Maybe you finished and got criticized instead of recognized. Maybe effort meant pressure, having to be perfect, to be acceptable, or visible in a way that felt unsafe. Your brain is a prediction machine. It doesn't evaluate situations neutrally, it looks for patterns and generates expectations based on what happened before. It learned that lesson. It kept it. Now, every time you try to begin something, it runs the same prediction: effort equals danger, and it stops you before you reach the point where that danger can find you. Route 2. Your dopamine is wired to relief, not action. Most people have heard that dopamine is a reward chemical. That's not quite right. Dopamine is a motivation chemical. It drives you toward whatever your brain predicts will feel good. And it can be trained in either direction. If you've spent years experiencing relief when you avoid a task, when you close the tab, skip the workout, scroll instead of start, your dopamine system learned to anticipate that relief. It now pulls you toward avoidance, not because you're undisciplined, because that's the pattern you reinforced, often without realizing it. The system is working exactly as designed. It just got pointed the wrong way. Route 3. Discipline was punitive in your past. For some people, structure wasn't neutral growing up. It came with pressure, with surveillance, with consequences for not being enough, not fast enough, not focused enough, not compliant enough. Your body remembers that. When you try to impose discipline on yourself now, create a schedule, hold yourself to a standard, part of your nervous system reads that act of self-regulation as threat, not care. Trying to be disciplined triggers the same physiological state as being controlled, and a nervous system that feels controlled will fight back. The goal isn't to become someone who pushes through the flinch every time. The goal is to make the flinch unnecessary. You do that by giving your nervous system evidence, slowly, consistently, that this action is safe. 4 principles for rewiring it. Principle 1. Shrink the task below the alarm threshold. Your nervous system has a trigger threshold. Below it, a task reads as safe. Above it, the threat response activates, and you get the heaviness, the resistance, the urge to stop before you start. Most productivity systems set tasks above that threshold and call it ambition. The actual move is to make the task smaller than your alarm system's trigger. Not a full workout. 5 minutes of movement, not an hour of work. 10 minutes with the document open. The goal is not to build discipline by fighting the resistance. The goal is to complete the task before the resistance arrives. Each completion is evidence, and evidence is how the nervous system updates. Principle 2. Anchor action to a state your body already trusts. Your body has states it already associates with safety. After your morning coffee, after a short walk, in that specific hour of the day when nothing has gone wrong yet. Attach the new behavior to one of those states. This isn't about building routine for its own sake. It's about borrowing your nervous system's existing sense of calm and pairing it with the new action. When the behavior lives inside a state that already feels safe, the brain's threat prediction shifts. The action inherits the calm of the anchor. Over time, the safety transfers. Principle 3. Separate completion from performance. Most people measure whether they did the task and how well they did it at the same time. That collapses 2 separate evaluations into one, and it means every task is secretly a performance review. Your brain treats anything that functions like a test as a potential threat. Start separating those 2 questions. Did it happen? That's the only metric right now. Not well, not impressively, not up to the standard you'd hold yourself to if you were already the person you're trying to become. Just, did it happen? When completion stops meaning evaluation, the task stops being a test, and a task that isn't a test stops triggering the threat response. Principle 4. Build the identity before the behavior. Your nervous system runs predictions based on who it believes you are. If it doesn't believe you're someone who does this, who shows up, who follows through, it will undermine every attempt until the prediction proves itself right. The identity has to shift first, not aspirationally, through small, true evidence. You did 2 minutes, that's evidence. You started even when it was uncomfortable, that's evidence. Your nervous system doesn't update based on what you intend to do. It updates based on what you actually do. Each small completion writes a new line in the story your body tells about who you are. You thought discipline was about force. You thought it meant white-knuckling through the resistance, grinding through the flinch, until eventually you just stopped feeling it. But the flinch was never the enemy. The flinch is information. It's your nervous system telling you that somewhere, in some earlier version of your life, it learned that doing the hard thing wasn't safe. Rewiring isn't about overpowering that signal. It's about going back to your nervous system again and again through small, completed actions and showing it. The danger isn't here anymore. Starting is safe. Finishing doesn't mean judgment. Trying doesn't mean losing. Discipline, when it actually works, isn't force. It's the result of a nervous system that finally believes the action is safe enough to take. And that belief is built the same way every belief your body holds was built, slowly, through evidence, one experience at a time. If this gave you a different way to see yourself, share it with someone who's been calling themselves lazy for too long. Subscribe for more. New episode every week.